In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro discusses the recent assassination attempts on former President Donald Trump, the implications of a polarized political environment, and the current state of the electoral race, particularly focusing on Kamala Harris's campaign. He delves into the shooter's background, media framing of political violence, and the broader cultural conversations surrounding race and immigration in America. The podcast discusses a shocking incident involving a recent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, marking the second such event within 8 weeks. This unprecedented situation is underscored as a significant moment in U.S. political history, with Shapiro drawing parallels to Gerald Ford's experiences with assassination attempts. The incident occurred around 2 p.m. outside Trump's international golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida, where a gunman was positioned between the 5th and 6th holes while Trump played a couple of holes behind. The alleged shooter was armed with an AK-47 rifle, a scope, and a GoPro camera, indicating an intention to film the assassination attempt. He also carried backpacks containing ceramic tiles, presumably for protection against incoming fire from the Secret Service. The Secret Service agents who were ahead of Trump quickly spotted the shooter and fired at him before he fled the scene. A bystander noted the shooter's license plate, leading to his arrest approximately 20 minutes later. Sheriff Rick Bradshaw confirmed that the Secret Service reported shots fired, describing the potential danger posed to Trump, who was only about 400 yards away. Shapiro emphasizes that Trump does not have full perimeter protection, typically reserved for sitting presidents, suggesting that this lack of security may have contributed to the incident. Following a previous assassination attempt, the Secret Service faced criticism for their security measures, and Shapiro argues for increased authority and staffing to protect Trump, especially given the current political climate. In the aftermath of the incident, Trump issued a statement reassuring his supporters that he was safe and would not be deterred by the attempt on his life. He expressed gratitude for their support and emphasized his resilience. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris also released statements expressing relief that Trump was unharmed and indicated they would be kept updated on the situation. Shapiro delves into the shooter's background, revealing a history of political activism and involvement in left-wing causes, particularly related to Ukraine. The shooter had previously made donations to Democratic candidates and expressed disappointment in Trump after initially supporting him in 2016. The podcast highlights that the shooter had been interviewed by various media outlets, including Newsweek, where he discussed his involvement in the Ukraine conflict. He had spent time in Ukraine and was quoted about recruiting soldiers to fight against the Taliban. Shapiro notes that the shooter has a checkered criminal history, including multiple arrests and a conviction for possessing a weapon of mass destruction, specifically a fully automatic machine gun. The podcast emphasizes the broader implications of the assassination attempts, suggesting that the increasingly polarized political environment in the U.S. may contribute to such violent acts. He argues that the rhetoric surrounding Trump has escalated, with many on the left labeling him as a significant threat to democracy. This heightened political tension creates an environment where individuals may feel justified in resorting to violence. The discussion shifts to the media's portrayal of Trump and the Democratic strategy surrounding the upcoming elections. Shapiro critiques an ad by Bernie Sanders that targets Trump while promoting Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, suggesting that Democrats are leveraging fear of Trump to rally support for their candidates. Representative Jasmine Crockett is quoted expressing her belief that the MAGA movement poses a domestic terrorism threat, further emphasizing the narrative that seeks to paint Trump supporters as a significant risk to national security. The podcast critiques the media's immediate response to the assassination attempt, arguing that the focus quickly shifted to blaming Trump for the heightened political tensions. The narrative suggests that the media consistently frames Trump as the source of violence and unrest, reflecting a perceived bias in how political violence is covered. The podcast shifts to the current state of the electoral race, noting that polls indicate a very close contest between Trump and Harris. The Seltzer poll shows Trump's lead in Iowa shrinking significantly, suggesting a tightening race. Despite the media's portrayal of Harris as a strong candidate, the reality is that she remains an undefined figure in the eyes of many voters. Further analysis reveals that the race is extremely close, with Harris within the margin of error in several key states. The podcast discusses various aspects of Kamala Harris's recent public appearances and statements, particularly focusing on her performance in interviews and debates. Shapiro reflects on the media's focus on Harris's fashion choices, suggesting that this emphasis distracts from her political performance. The discussion also touches on the broader implications of race in politics, critiquing the lack of substantive policy discussions that accompany her identity as a Black woman. Harris's struggles when speaking off-script are highlighted, with Shapiro criticizing her for failing to provide specific answers to direct questions, often resorting to vague anecdotes. In her attempts to connect with Trump supporters, Harris emphasizes commonalities among Americans, but Shapiro argues that her approach lacks depth and fails to resonate with disillusioned voters. The podcast discusses a specific instance where Harris claimed there were no American troops in active combat zones, which Shapiro categorizes as a significant falsehood. This statement drew backlash, particularly from military personnel who felt misrepresented. Following this, Wes Moore, a supporter of Harris's campaign, attempts to clarify her remarks, highlighting the challenges Harris faces in maintaining credibility. The podcast also addresses the ongoing controversy dubbed Catgate, involving allegations that Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, are eating cats and dogs. Shapiro criticizes the media for sensationalizing this narrative instead of addressing more pressing issues related to mass migration. J.D. Vance's comments on the issue are highlighted, where he confronts media questioning that he feels defends Kamala Harris rather than seeking genuine answers. The discussion emphasizes the need for a more serious and constructive dialogue about immigration and its effects on American communities, rather than allowing the media to dictate the narrative through sensational stories.